Really? Not one question. Okay, that's what I thought. Isabella? 18? Yep. So you're all writing this down. You're all paying attention to it. If you didn't finish your homework, you're writing this down now. You're fixing anything you did wrong. All right, if I take, you said 18, right? 3.6 or 3.5? 3.6. Oh, only the other one. My other class has 2. All right, so 3.6, number 18. I have negative 6 times the absolute value of W minus 3 is less than negative 24. We do not determine if we have an and or an or here. Why? Nick, you're writing this down to take notes on this? Why don't I decide? Chris, you've got your glasses on, you're paying attention to what we're doing. Why don't I decide whether we have an and or an or here? Jacob? I do. I need to get this absolute value part completely alone. So I'm going to divide by negative 6 on both sides first. So I end up with the absolute value of negative 3, W minus 3 is greater than a positive 4. Okay, you got to flip the symbol. Remember, you're dividing by a negative coefficient. All right, from here, is this an and or is this an or, and why? Some of you are still getting confused by this. Is this an and or, and why? Chris, why is this an and? What does this say? The greater than sign's coming first, isn't it? So this is a greater than. So which one is this? This is an or. Remember, absolute value of W minus 3 is greater than, because the bigger side comes first, is greater than 4. So this is an or. So I'm going to do W minus 3 is less than a negative 4. Don't forget, you're going to split that and flip the inequality and change the constant to a negative, or you're going to write exactly what there is up here exactly down. So you have one that's exactly the same as the original without the absolute value. The other one, it's exactly the same except we have a less than and a negative. And now we're going to add 3 to each side for all of it. And I get W is less than negative 1 or W is greater than 7. And then we would graph that. What else can I do for you guys? Jacob? Yep, let's do 11. I would put a big fat star next to 11. Okay. I would put a big fat star. Chris, do me a favor. Get your stuff. Go stand at that table. Go stand at that table. Go stand at that table. All right. So I have 5 is greater than the absolute value of V plus 2, and then outside that plus 3. Okay, I need the absolute value alone, and I need the absolute value on the left side. So I'm going to get the absolute value alone first, and then I'm going to rearrange this. All right, so remember, I can't split anything until the absolute value is completely alone. So I'm going to add a negative 3 to both sides. So 5 plus a negative 3 is 2. So I have 2 is greater than the absolute value of V plus 2. Now I need to flip this around. Which side of my absolute value symbol is facing which side of my inequality symbol is facing the absolute value? Which side of the inequality symbol is facing the absolute value? The smaller side or the bigger side is facing the absolute value? Come on, all of you are looking at this. Which side of the inequality symbol is facing the absolute value? The small side or the big side? Kaylee? The small side. So when I flip this around, the small side still has to point to that absolute value. Are you guys good with that? Yes, Sam, you good with that? All right, so remember, I need the absolute value on the left. I need my constant on the right. So the small side of the inequality is pointing at the absolute value. So the small side of my inequality is pointing at my absolute value. I've just flipped it around. So I have the absolute value term on the left, my constant on the right. Now somebody tell me, do I have an and or an or? Matthew? Why? The symbol here is less than. This is going to be an and. Somebody split this for me. Peter? No, drop the absolute value. Excellent. Excellent. So splitting that, Peter, applies the absolute value, so we don't need the absolute value signs anymore. Does that make sense? Yep, so splitting it applies that absolute value. And now I'm just going to solve. I'm going to add a -2 to all three of the sides. And I get 0. Oops. Write that so I can see it. I have -4 is less than b, which is less than 0. I would put a big fat star next to that. Yeah, remember, absolute value always has to be on the left, the constant always has to be on the right, and then we determine if we have an and or an or. Nick, what can I do for you, sweetie? We need to flip the order. Flip the order in the inequality. Because we need the absolute value expression on the left, we need the constant on the right with the absolute value symbol in between them. So I need to flip the order of the inequality. Thank you for asking that. Charlotte? Yep. Who needs to see what's up there? All right, let's take a look at number 28. All right, 28 is an absolute value equation. So I have -4 times the absolute value of 7 plus d is equal to -44. So Charlotte, for me to solve this, what do I have to start with? Yep, I need to divide everything by -4. Remember, I need the absolute value term completely alone. So this is going to be the absolute value of 7 plus d is equal to 11. Now here we don't have to worry about ands or ors. Why? Why do I not have to worry about ands or ors here? Ashton? Yeah, this is just an equation, so I'm just going to split this. So my 7 plus d is either going to be equal to a -11, or the 7 plus d is going to equal a positive 11. And then I'm just going to finish this. So I have d is equal to a -18, or d is equal to 4. How about any of the story problems? Does anyone want me to do any of those story problems? Okay, get your notes out. Now's the time for you guys to ask questions. Yes? No, I'm moving on now. Okay. If I have time at the end, I will absolutely do one. I just want to get through this chapter summary so you guys know what's going to be on your test. Okay. Okay, so today is 12-4. This is our chapter 3 test summary. Remember, your test is on Monday. All right, the first thing that we talked about is we talked about solving inequalities and graphing the solutions. We had problems like x minus 3 is less than 5. So these are just single inequalities. Or negative 3d is greater than or equal to 15. The thing to remember is, remember to flip the inequality symbol when coefficient is negative. All right, this is 3, 2 and 3, 3. So this is section 3.2 and 3.3. All right, we also did multi-step inequalities. This was 3.4. So we also talked about multi-step inequalities. That might look something like 6z minus 15 is less than or equal to 4z plus 11. Or 4d plus 7 is less than or equal to 23. These are all, these are two types of multi-step inequalities. Charlotte, who sits next to you normally? Is that Andrew? All right. Then we dove into compound inequalities. All right, this was 3, 5. All right, this is when you have your ands and you have your or. An and looks something like negative 4 is less than r minus 5, which is less than negative 1. That's an example of an and. An or is going to look something like 4v plus 3 is less than negative 5. Or negative 2v plus 7 is greater than 1. Positive 2v plus 7 is greater than 1. Remember, when we have graphs, an and graph is going to look something like this. And it's the overlap. An or graph is going to look something like that. Just as a quick reminder of what the graphs look like. All right, one of the things that we did have is we had and story problems. I would definitely look at a homework quiz for this, for the and story problem. Who needs to see what's up there? All right, so if we take a look at an and story problem, it's going to be something like, we did this in our notes, the average of 3 pH readings of pool water must be between 7.2 and 7.8 inclusive. Inclusive means that includes 7.8 and 7.2. first reading was 7.4. The second reading was 7.9. We want to know the range of the third reading. I'm pretty sure we had a homework quiz that had this stuff on it. All right, we definitely had a story problem worksheet that I made that had these. So remember, we're going to have our maximum pH average, our minimum pH average is less than or equal to our actual pH average, which is less than or equal to our maximum pH average. All right, and if you remember, we need to substitute the formula for the average in here. Chris, you writing this down? All right, so our minimum was 7.2. Is less than or equal to, well, how do I find the average of 3 readings? How do I find the average of 3 readings? Jacob? Yeah, so I'm going to add all 3 of these together, so it's going to be 7.4 plus 7.9 plus x, because I don't know x, that's my third reading, divided by 3 is less than or equal to 7.8. All right, and then you guys can finish this. We had this in our notes. I'm going to say see rest in notes because we did this in our notes. This is an and story problem. You definitely want to remember that. You're going to have one of those on your test. All right, the last thing that we did, what number am I on? 4? The last thing we did was absolute value equations. And absolute value inequalities. Remember, you need the absolute value expression on the left. You need your constant on the right, and then you have your inequality symbol between them. That's when you determine if you have an and or an or. All right, remember, an and is less than or equal to. The or is greater than or equal to. And Nick, I'm going to do one of these story problems here as an example to finish this off. Yep. So that little tiny table is a good thing to kind of take a snapshot of in your brain and remember it. All right, so let's let's take a look at an absolute value story problem. All right, I need to hurry up and do this, so if you guys need to fill this in, come see me. All right, so let's take a look at an absolute value inequality story problem. So this is going to be, you guys did not have this. Actually, I'll do one that we had. This is going to be number 32 from worksheet 3.6, just so we can use one of them from last night. It said, Victor has a goal of earning $75 per week. All right. Then it says, last month, he was within $6.50 of his goal. Find the range of amounts that he earned last month. All right. Well, he has a goal of $75. He was within $6.50 of that. That is our varies by, because how much he had, how much he earned per week varied by was within $6.50. Your goal, there is your ideal. Remember, goal and ideal are like synonymous words with each other. Ideally, that's what you want, the goal of what you want. All right, and we know that he varied by $6.50 on either side. He is within $6.50 on either side. So this is when we use the absolute value inequality. So the actual earning minus the ideal earning, that absolute value is less than or equal to the varies by amount. That will always be the case. It will always be the actual minus the ideal and the absolute value. It will always be a less than or equal to. Always. This is always a less than. Because we're looking to find the maximum and the minimum. It couldn't possibly be an or. It's always going to be an and or a less than. So if I set this up, it's going to be x minus 75. That absolute value is less than or equal to $6.50. Now we split this. Negative 6.5 is less than or equal to x minus 75, which is less than or equal to a positive 6.5. So I'm going to add 75 to all the sides. And I end up with, so 75 minus 6.5 gives me $68.50, which is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 75 plus 650, which is going to be 78 point, I did something wrong. Let me do that again. So 6.5 plus 75 is 81.5. Thank you. I knew I did something wrong. 81.50. And I would write that as a sentence. This is money. That's pretty typical. Yes? Well, for here, what I would say is the range of, I might write something like the range of weekly earnings is between $68.50 and $81.50. I do have to show somehow that it includes it, inclusive, or you could say a maximum of $81.50 and a minimum of $68.50. That also indicates that it is inclusive if you say maximum and minimum. So somehow you have to indicate that. Okay? All right, you guys are good to go. You guys, who was in my study hall yesterday?